I'll probably say four. We're going to go over World War II. We'll look at the three theories and how they apply to how the war started. Then we'll also look at the war itself and dilemmas in the war. So let's get started. So liberal solutions to the war. Why the war start? Why the war started? Need to allow self-determination. Britain still had colonies at this time. They had colonies before World War II. Even after World War One, Germany tried to take those colonies, but Britain kept their colonies. But Britain is still on the decline. Other countries can still smell their weakness and will try to take advantage of it. And Germany will rise up because of this perceived weakness again. And the colonies themselves, India, African nations or African colonies want to determine themselves, so they start fighting back against the British. The League of Nations. The League of Nations was to stop all future aggression, but it doesn't work, right? We have World War II. League of Nations is a good idea, but it doesn't have the teeth to stop war. So why does it fail? Well, you had American isolationism. America, after the end of World War One, brought its troops home, disarmed, and looked inward. It did not want to be the world police, so it stayed out of world politics. It focused on domestic politics, not international. There are disarmament agreements. The Washington Naval Conference limited navies around the world and disarmed countries from having large navies. The Kellogg-Briand Pact was another disarmament agreement between countries. Germany is already disarmed, but all the other countries decide that we're going to disarm as well and stop and agree not to go to war. Of course, we go to war within 15 years of this agreement. There is Japanese aggression in Manchuria. Japan wants oil, it needs oil, it wants to build a modern military, it wants to build a modern society. It needs oil, which is the lifeblood of a modern society. So they see resource-rich Manchuria across the sea, take it from China. Of course, the League of Nations is supposed to stop that, but it does not. And of course, in Europe, you have Italian aggression against Ethiopia. Italy goes and takes Ethiopia over. And again, the League of Nations has no teeth. It does not stop it. This emboldens other countries to start building up and going to take what they want. So that's a little perspective. Realist perspective, the Versailles Treaty. The Versailles Treaty was unfair for the Germans. The Germans were to pay reparations to all the countries that fought in World War One. So what did Germany have to do? They had to print money. When you print money, you create inflation. When you have inflation, your economy crashes. So this is what happens to the German economy before World War II. When people are desperate, when they need money, they are starving, they will look to leaders. You have a charismatic leader that says this is the fault of whoever, and they will rise to power and take over. So the Versailles Treaty is the start for realists to see why World War II came about. Rapallo, it normalized relations between the Soviet Union and Germany after World War I. Now Germany does not have to worry about its left flank or behind them. They can focus on Europe and not worry about the USSR. The Carnot Agreement that established territorial borders in Europe. This sets the stage. Germany loses some territory to France. It loses some territory to Poland. It establishes German borders. People are not happy that this happens. They will look to a leader that will bring about greater German prosperity and stop losing territory to other countries. So, these agreements do not help Germany, and it can help lead to war. So we get German expansion. Germany sees these things. Then Hitler comes to power. Germany will then go and take over the land taken by France. It takes over Austria. It takes over Czechoslovakia. it then invades Poland. So Germany expands, and then what has to happen is the Allies have to fight because Germany's just going to take more and more and more and more. And so Germany gets aggressive. Now they feel they can take over the Soviet Union, and they invade the Soviet Union. So now you have a two-front war. Germany fighting on its west and to its east. And you have Japan joining the Pacific. So it is a two-front war for the United States as well. You have Germany in Europe and Japan in the Pacific. And so we are surrounded as well, just like Germany. So the question becomes, how did this war happen again? Well, for realists, these are the things that bring about World War II. For world systems theorists, again, is exploitation of the lesser developed countries. We want to take over these lesser developed countries. That perceived weakness of Britain, it's easy to take over. We're going to take them over. Keep the imbalance between strong countries and the weak. We want to keep the weak weak, and we want to take states or colonies from weakness, and we will be the masters and take over. We have the power to do that. Core countries fighting over who will control the less developed and poor countries. The reason for World War II, according to World Systems Theorists, is that bullet point right there. These core countries keep fighting. They want the natural resources that these poor or less developed countries have. So let's look at pre-war America. We talked about it. They're isolationists. We're looking inward. We're not doing anything politically outside. We just worry about what's happening inside our borders. We are not the world's police before World War II. We felt fairly secure in the United States. What do we have that protects the United States naturally? We have two huge oceans that protect the United States from invasion. So why should we have to worry about what happens around the world? We are secure here. The United States resented being dragged into World War I. We did not like being in World War I. That's why we waited for so long. We were isolationists then. So we do not want to be dragged into another war. So we are going to stay out of it. But of course, we do have allies, we do have friends we do not want to see fall. We do not like the evils of Germany. So, and not just, I'm not saying Germany as a whole, but Hitler. So we do try to help out our friends. So cash and carry, introduced by President Roosevelt. America would sell arms to democratic countries as long as those countries pick them up and carry them off. We will sell you the arms. You have to come and pick them up. So, if you watched Darkest Hour a few years ago, where Churchill is talking to President Roosevelt and says, you can come get your planes that you bought, you just have to drag them across the border, and then you can get them. So you can't even use mechanized trucks to bring the planes over. You have to pull them yourselves over the border into Canada and then bring them to Britain. So cash and carry is a way to help out, but not really help out. We can't bring it to you. You have to come get it. So this policy aligned the U.S. with democracies. So we aligned ourselves with Great Britain, with France. We said we are going to help out these democratic countries from the tyranny of the Third Reich. And reiterated American concern and friendship for Western Europe. We want to help out Western Europe. Again, we're a democracy ourselves. We do not want to help promote authoritarianism, so we help out the countries that we feel are democratic. Some more help for Great Britain because they are the last one standing at this point. All of Europe is conquered. The Soviet Union is reeling. Britain is an island, is being bombed, needs help. So Britain could not protect the ships that were bringing over cash and carry merchandise. They were being sunk by U-boats in the Atlantic. So what can we do to help? Roosevelt worked out another deal with Britain. Destroyers for bases. We will give you destroyers. We'll give you escorts for these ships to bring you weapons of war. But you got to give us bases. Give us bases in your territory, and we will help you out. So Britain got 50 destroyers. In return, the United States got rent-free basing rights in British-held territories. So we go into Singapore, we can go into Hong Kong, we can go into Scapa Flow up in Scotland. We can go into, we have bases around in former British territories or at that time British-held territories. So hey, we will help you out, we'll give you stuff, but you got to give us basing rights. Now we have the Lend-Lease program. Britain could no longer afford cash carry. They don't have the cash. Their treasury is being depleted, so they just can't go and pay for it and carry it off. Having colonies can drain your treasury, but also being in war drains your treasury just as much. So Roosevelt would lend or lease supplies needed by Britain. So we'll lend it here. You can borrow it, just like your friends. Here, borrow this, and then, hey, we're good. And then you never get it back. That's the way the Lend-Lease worked. Roosevelt stated the best defense for America was a strong Britain. It was the buffer between Hitler and the United States. Then on December 7, 1941, we were attacked by Japan. And then on December 8th, the United States declared war on Japan. And after that, on December 11th, Hitler declared war on the United States. So this takes the United States out of that isolationist stance, and we go to war. So we were only going to go to war with Japan, but then Hitler decided to declare war on the United States. The United States is now at war with Germany. So a question I normally ask in class is, why did the United States go to war in Europe first, then the Pacific? Japan was the one that attacked us, but we go to war with Germany first. Germany was the bigger threat at the time. They had more territory. We needed to help the British out, so we decided to go and help the British and fight in Europe. Focus on Europe more than the Pacific. And again, the Pacific is very large, very hard for the Japanese to invade the west coast of the United States. It could be easier for Germany. They do have planes they could bomb, so we need to focus on Europe first. So U.S. security, balance power, we wanted to keep Britain in there. Also, we are allied with the Soviet Union at the time. They are our allies. They were fighting the Germans, so they needed both the Soviet Union and Britain needed the United States to enter the war in Europe and not focus on the Pacific. We would fight the Japanese together, but first the bigger threat is Germany. They'd set up a defense perimeter around Europe and try to contain Hitler and the Third Reich. Why did the U.S. want to go to war with Japan? Well, U.S. economic motives, Japan taking over China, pretty much taking over East Asia. U.S. security, again, we have the Philippines. Philippines is one of our territories. So, and that is a threat to U.S. sovereignty as well. So, we need to be wary of the Japanese. Of course, Japan is Germany's ally. Japan threatens British colonies in Asia. Alright, so let's evaluate. Was fighting Germany valid? Would German hegemony in Europe have threatened U.S. sovereignty? Good question to think about. What would have happened if Germany actually beat Britain? Would a German hegemon be good for the United States? Would we have been the hegemon? These are like what-if questions. Was U.S. intervention necessary to prevent German hegemony? Again, rhetorical question. Think about it. Does the U.S. need to be involved to stop a German hegemon? Of course, at the time when we got in, Britain is reeling, the Soviet Union's reeling. So, us coming in and helping out turns the tide of war. Could the U.S. stop Germany without setting up a Soviet hegemony? Of course, at the end of World War II, you had two nations become the most powerful. You had the United States and you had the Soviet Union. So, uh, because we interfered, does that help Soviet Union become a hegemon? Was fighting Japan valid? Was the Pacific War necessary? To stem Japanese aggression, I would probably say yes, but that's in my calculation. Was it diversion? Again, these are rhetorical questions for you to think about. Effects of U.S. entry on global balance of power. With U.S. entry now, with us not being bombed, it does affect the balance of power. You have the Soviet Union, which does have a lot of territory. They do have factories in the east, but the United States, not being bombed, has the infrastructure to build weapons of war. So it does have a huge impact on global balance of power. On human rights. Is the United States helping human rights, or is it hurting human rights by entering the war? Stopping what happens in China. You had the Japanese torturing Chinese. So does that have a greater effect that the United States is in and fighting the Japanese and trying to stop those atrocities? The same thing within Europe, and what the Nazis were, what the Third Reich was doing with Jews. U.S. conduct of World War II, 6 controversies. Was another European strategy better? Was there a better way to go about fighting the European strategy? Should we just invade it as quick as possible to end the war as quick as possible? But, Germany at the time we entered the war was really strong. It would have been hard for the British to help us. Demand Stalin give up claim on Eastern Europe in exchange for Lend-Lease from the U.S. Should we have said, okay, we will lend you and lease you weapons of war, but you cannot say you hold Eastern Europe? Stalin wanted Eastern Europe as a buffer from invasion again from Europe. Make a separate peace with Germany. Why not just, instead of going to war, say, we don't want to fight you, we want to fight the Japanese. But then again, the British probably would have fell. The Soviets would have been fighting for a lot longer. Could a separate peace with Germany exist? Reach a clear spheres of influence agreement with Stalin. You control this area, we control this area. Because of World War II, we have the Cold War that happens, which we'll go over next. Air war controversies, dropping bombs, firebombing certain towns, destroying cities, destroying the civilian population. Was the United States right in doing that? And then what do we do with Germany at the end? We let Germany be Germany after World War I, but they rose up and fought another world war. Now what do we do? Do we punish? Do we help? And we'll go over that when we get in the Cold War. And then the dilemmas. One of the dilemmas, probably the biggest dilemma at the end of World War II, is what should the United States do? Should we invade Japan, or should we drop the atomic bomb? Again, this is a rhetorical question. It's a good discussion point that I have in my classes. I think I might have an essay question on this. There's no right or wrong answer. It's how you really answer the question. How much would an invasion cost? How much does dropping the bomb cost? What does dropping the bomb do for world history? We've been living it since 1945. So was it proper to drop the bomb, or should we just have invaded Japan? Would we have a different world today if we just invaded Japan? Because the Soviet Union would have invaded, and we might have had a North Japan and South Japan, just like North Vietnam and South Vietnam, or North Korea and South Korea. So, it's just a what-if exercise to get you thinking about what was going through Truman's head when he decided that he needed to drop the bomb. So, all right, that's it for this. Pretty quick. I just wanted to go over it quick. I know it's 20 minutes, but hopefully this helps you understand concepts for the test. All right, we'll see you for Cold War. Talk to you later. Bye.